I drive my car up to the lake as if there's someone to awake. I haven't been to bed for days, I live in a twilight haze. And I set my heart to the setting sun, and I hope that no one else has done it. And the drinks are never far, open up the bar. I miss you every single day. I wait until we start your way.
It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's normal stuff, don't worry. Nothing to worry about.
Normal is okay.
Yeah, cool. Hey, well, good to catch up, Steve. Now, you're the director and owner of Fifth Dimension Consulting Engineers,
That's
based
correct.
here in Christchurch. Now, when did the business start? Tell us about the beginnings of it and how it kind of came about.
So it came about because I came back to Christchurch. So rewinding back, I studied at Canterbury, graduated in 2009. And then I was bonded back to a company in the North Island. They paid for my degree, so I went back there for 5 years.
Wow. Is that common?
Not as common, no. I was probably classified as one of the mature students at university. I went there late. Most people went there probably straight after school.
Yeah.
I would have been 22, I think, before I went to university. Really trying to find what I wanted prior to that.
I think it's quite a good thing to go to uni a wee bit later.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
I worked for a while, just didn't know what I wanted to do out of school. And then found I was working at a service station, got talking to a guy and said, hey, I like doing drawings, art, graphics, and ended up...
street cleaner.
Street cleaner. Ended up just walking into a firm back in Wanganui, where I was from, in the North Island.
Yep.
And one thing led to another, and got a job. And they started sending me on some engineering papers, which I started enjoying.
Yeah.
Really started finding a bit of my niche. And that sort of had a bit of a passion with me. I always liked sort of how things work, how things fit together, that kind of engineering, science, technology, engineering, mathematics side. Even though I sucked at maths at high school, I was really bad. Pulled out of science. I got, I think, 30% in 7th form maths, so it was never really on the target. But I was just good with graphics and art and how things fit together. So then out of school and out of that pressure, when you find something you're passionate about, it just falls into place.
That's remarkable, yeah. So that obstacle of not being good at maths didn't stop you.
No,
in
no.
fact, because the passion...
Absolutely. In hindsight, I mean, I'm being an engineer now, you're good with numbers inherently because of that. But back in school, I wasn't good at it.
Yeah.
I was probably more focused on sports and girls and beaches and all that sort of thing, and mates and having fun. That sort of really led to engineering papers at the firm I worked for on the North Island, and then they said, well, you're doing really good, do you want to go to university? So they offered me to go to university and paid for it. So then that's why I felt bonded to go back to there and year for year. Yep. And then my wife and I, because my wife studied at Canterbury as well, and we missed Christchurch and decided to come back. So we came back in 2016.
Wow.
And then I went through about sort of...
That was after the earthquakes. What did you possibly... What could you possibly miss about Christchurch?
Funnily enough, we left Christchurch 2 weeks before the earthquakes.
Oh, right.
So we got out just in time, so to speak.
Yep.
And then when we went back to Wanganui, we left Wanganui before the major floods. So we seem to avoid natural disasters.
Cool.
So, I wanted to come back to Christchurch. We both liked it, loved the outdoors, and obviously being an engineer, thinking, being involved with the earthquakes. And I had a real passion at the time to design high-rise buildings. So came down here and worked for a bigger firm, and I designed the Westpac building up on the Avon River there. That was my first taste of multi-story buildings, and I didn't like it. It just went on and on and on for ages, and that was me for probably a solid year. And I worked for 3 or 4 different firms, and I guess I was just trying to find my grounding more than anything. I felt like I had a really good firm I worked for in the North Island. I was just trying to, find that second family again. And that's why I went through a few places. But for me, it was the best thing that could have ever happened, because I learnt to basically apply those different situations into what I'm doing now, and I learnt what I didn't want.
Yeah.
So
elimination.
Yeah.
kind of, in a way.
Yeah,
Yep.
and obviously a lot of people see going through jobs as a bad thing, but for me it was probably the best thing that I could have ever done, because I learned something from each of those roles, and learned what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And I guess the main thing that I was on the fence for a while of, do I push the button, do I go, do I do my own thing, do I not, is this going to work, is this right?
Yep.
There's always a risk.
Yep.
But looking back now, I'm glad I did it, and it's amazing. And now I can create a culture and an environment that really means something, and I think that's probably the biggest thing in what we do, and that's our point of difference, is our culture, our environment, our collaboration. We have each other's back.
Yeah.
I've never had that in any of the places down here. You always just felt like you're stuck in a cubicle all day, every day, crunching numbers. So,
Yeah.
just not feeling valued or important.
Yep. I think the businesses that are going to succeed in the future are businesses that do obviously embrace all of that type of thing. Like, it's more important. Like, I think there's a pretty solid understanding that that type of thing matters. It is unusual. I understand why it's been kind of wrestled with for a while, because it's kind of like the soft kind of things, or the things, almost like the invisible things that matter more than the other things. Yeah. But
there are a lot of people that, a lot of firms out there all, they're aware of work-life balance and all of that, but and they say they're going to do it, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
And they probably get bogged down in the work that they're doing, but I guess where we are, because we all talk every day. So there's 5 of us in our team, and
including yourself.
Including myself.
Yep.
So we've got a team of 5.
Yep.
And we're just really open. We talk every day. We really do have each other's backs, and we know if someone's going through something, or we do ask, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Have you got what you need? Hey mate, take the morning off if you need." Like from my perspective, being the leader of the team, I don't like the word boss personally. I feel like the word boss is an old term, and I'm trying to, I guess, buck the trend a little bit. So for me, I don't like the word boss.
No.
I like to be, a lot of places, the leader or the director or the boss segregates themselves and has their own office, and but I think it's really important to be in with your team and
totally.
Lead by example and be part of it all. So, we just create a really open office environment, and it's not about the time you come into work or anything. As long as the jobs are done, the clients are looked after, and the projects are out on time, I'm not concerned with you come in at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or leave early, or you do you. We've all got lives, and that's important to recognise.
It is. We've got, having a little cafe, an espresso bar, you kind of get a bunch of customers coming in bitching about their jobs and complaining, and workmates and the structure and stuff like that, and sometimes it is about the leadership and how it's the wrong people are in leadership. They've kind of worked their way up through a process of just sticking around and becoming kind of bitter, and then and then they rule, and it can make for a really unpleasant environment.
I couldn't agree more.
And people are just trying to do what they love, and then sometimes you've got this backwards kind of leadership kind of thing.
You got to enjoy what you do. You want to be passionate about it. You want to get out of bed in the morning and be excited to go to work, and not thinking, not again, not another day of this. So I think that's pretty important. And I found opening a business in Christchurch, there is this, and everybody that's got a small business will probably attest to this as well, that Christchurch is very much an old boys network. Yep. And it can be really, really hard to break into. Yeah. And buck the old trend, so to speak. Yeah. So.
Yeah, definitely. There's that will exist for sure.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of the old boys network. It's a protective mechanism, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah. Yep. Look after us.
Yeah.
Keep the other lot out.
You need a new boys network.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to inject some new energy into the new boys network.
The neo boys.
So now I'm not really down with structural engineering too much, but so you get this crazy vision from the architect.
Yeah.
And do you kind of like, well, have a look at it on paper, roll your eyes, have a wee chuckle?
That's pretty much our jam. Most of our work's with architects, and there's there's excellent, really, really good architects, and there's some architects that just don't really have a good appreciation of, I don't know, like a simple structural flair, if you like, of where things should be. And obviously it's our job to make everything work within reason. Yeah. And we collaborate really, really closely with all of our clients, mainly architects, builders, clients, contractors and the like.
So there's a bit of creative work on your part.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And that's something that we pride ourselves on too, which is challenging the status quo, basically.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure a structure is fit for purpose, it's buildable, and it's cost effective. So we collaborate really closely with the architecture, so we make our structure fit within the envelope as seamlessly as possible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other engineering firms out there that just go straight to steel, for example, and I know that for a fact. So and a lot don't. So we always try to work with timber as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then if timber doesn't work, go to say high span, LVL, glue lam, and then steel. Steel's got its place, concrete's got its place, and obviously. So
yeah. So when just going back a step, what kind of projects are you kind of picking up here and there? Like, have you kind of got a particular direction or choice of your projects?
We were initially set up primarily for high-end architectural homes, and that was my passion. I loved, and that's why I set up. I had a lot of architects that came with me, and I was doing their houses, new alterations, etc. So we're primarily, I'd say at the moment, we're 80 to 90% architectural residential homes, and we do light commercial. So we've got a light commercial building under construction out in Hornby at the moment, precast, concrete, tilt panel, structural steel. So we'd ideally like to do a lot more of that. Yeah. But at the moment, the market is shifting more towards commercial. So commercial is busier, residential is slowing down a bit, obviously with interest rates, increases in materials and costs. So
there's a lot to think about all the time. Yeah, because that's an ever-changing kind of thing.
Absolutely. So we're always thinking, what else can we do? Where else can we offer our service in what we do? So I don't want to just be, one way only. So there is a lot more that we can offer. So we recently had a contract with Rocket Lab USA, which was really, really exciting. So we were involved in the design of their Neuron launchpad structure with them over in America. So that was really exciting. It was only a little project, but it was also a foot in the door with them for future projects when they're expanding. So that was quite exciting.
Totally.
So that was a different sort of out of the box scenario.
So tell me again, a Neuron.
It's a neutron launchpad structure.
Neutron launchpad. That sounds like something out of science fiction.
Yeah.
So launchpad kind of just sounds like a big tennis court, but
this was about,
if you're launching a rocket off it,
it was about 30 metres in diameter by 10 metres high. So to give you a bit of context, but I can't say too much more about it, unfortunately, for obvious reasons.
I don't even know what to ask about that type of thing. What the hell's a neuron? Launching a rocket into your brain.
I assume you weren't pushing for your favourite material, wood.
No,
at this stage.
I think that would be heavily charred.
Yep.
And our current projects, we've got a $6.5 million house under design that's currently in Dunedin.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm aware, it's going to be one of the most expensive homes to be built in Dunedin. Yeah. It's up on the hill. So that's quite exciting to be involved with our team. So we're doing all full 3D modelling of that. Okay. So that's quite neat when you start seeing your 3D modelling being built and all your details in 3D and they completely start talking to the architect's drawings as well, so they all align, and it's really, really quite powerful for clash detection and making sure everything fits together and is where it should be.
Right. And then so that depends on when you come in on the project.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. So we always push for early contractor involvement, because if you're on early, even with a good builder, we can design anything, but it's really important to have a good builder's ideas in, because essentially they're making it fit together on site. So you want it to be buildable for them, and obviously as most streamlined and cost effective as possible. So it's really good to be involved at the forefront. And say, hey, look, guys, if we massage this around a bit, we can change it here, and it makes it easier, and it's going to be more cost effective for the client. And you know, do a bit of a concept and a scheme of how it could look, and then they can take that, put it into their model, and make sure it's going to work. And so it's quite powerful.
Yeah, I've noticed the good collaboration on your website. So,
That's exactly that.
It's exactly what we're talking about now. Get those people in as early as possible and create a nice vibe.
Absolutely, and that was all around our name of the name Fifth Dimension is about that sort of higher plane. So inherently our icon is a stencil version of the 5.
Yeah.
So the horizontal line over the semicircle. So the horizontal line is that higher plane that we strive to achieve in the work that we do.
Yeah.
So for us, the fifth dimension acts on a higher plane.
Yeah.
And it's invisible to the human eye, but it's seamless yet essential, like that of engineering. Yeah,
it's transcendent kind of. But that's freaking important because if you've just got the materials. Or whatever, it's not necessarily going to create a cohesive kind of thing, and plus you need all of those other things. Often they've probably been neglected in the past, and it just comes down to numbers or some shit like that.
And it goes back to that dislike of sitting in the office cubicle and just being, like a, the personality's taken out of it all.
I agree. I always likened that process to a sweatshop. You're in there all day, every day, crunching numbers, and then you're out, and you don't get appreciated, you don't get patted on the back. Hey, good work, mate. That's awesome, and that's one thing we always do in the office too. And whilst we give each other constructive criticism, someone does a good job. It's like, well done, mate. I love in our office that we can talk in a way that we're not offended, and say one of the other guys says, "Oh no, let's do it this way." "Oh, Steve, you're wrong," or And for me, it's been a really good learning curve as a leader to actually delegate, because there are guys in our team that are better at certain things than I am. And as soon as you notice that, it's quite empowering. And then I can spend more time on doing things that I'm good at, working on the business, for example, rather than working in it.
Well, I mean, classically, from leaders that I've read about, look for those people who can do that other thing that they haven't got time to do.
Correct.
And they do it better.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard a similar saying, which is, employ people that are better than you at whatever it is you're wanting to do. That's a key, I reckon.
Yeah, it is a key.
So does sometimes the structural kind of component of a build, does it ever really, have you had any instances where it has altered the design sort of noticeably?
The architect's design?
Yeah.
That we have. There's been ones, classic cases. You've got a typical home that's got an open living, dining, kitchen with this big wing with tiny little walls down the end. And we'll just get wall bracing to work. Well, actually, no, that doesn't work. You need a portal frame there, for example. So just, I guess, having that spatial awareness, that appreciation that, in an earthquake or wind, you can't rely on two tiny little walls down here. Say an architect, for example, might put that into. So there's a code and a document from Jib called the Jib Easy Brace software. We liken it to, I guess, like a cookie cutter version for bracing. You bang numbers in there and say it works, but a good structural engineer will look at it and go, no, it doesn't. You've got to work out what actual load is being attributed to those two walls, and if you actually sit down and do the calculations for earthquake and wind, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work.
Jeepers.
Like that, so you need to put in a frame for it.
It's a bit rough.
Yeah. So.
Bloody Jib.
It's a good tool. It's a good. But it should be checked. No. It really should be checked.
Yeah.
And there's an Engineering New Zealand and brands document that's come out to pretty much to that effect, saying that structural engineers should be aware that this is a good tool, but you should check specific lines. You should be aware of that, and you should have a bit more resilience in your structure. Secondary load paths and the like. So. That's a pretty common example that happens quite a lot. Yeah.
Classic.
And then you get it's like during the construction phase, and especially in an alteration, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You design a beam and you open this wall up and whoa, what's all that in there? I didn't know that was there, and this was built how long ago? And like I'm working on one out of Christchurch at the moment, and the original drawings, I think they were about 350 by 45 floor joists spanning a decent length. I think it was like 6 metres. You turn up the site and the builder opens the floor up, and there were only 240s, and they were spanning the same distance, and you think straight away, well, that doesn't work.
Wow.
How is this floor?
Wow.
And you go up there and you jump up and down, and it's really bouncy.
Yeah.
And as soon as you've seen that, you can't unsee it. So then you've got this kind of ethical dilemma, and it's like, well, you've got to strengthen that if you're going to do any alterations in work. So
Totally.
and then you start looking through the documentation, and sure enough, someone's signed it off way back.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that could have been intentional. Could have been unintentional. It could have just been. Well, I suppose perhaps it doesn't matter. Like negligence is, equally as bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, even on simple jobs, and people make mistakes, people get things wrong, or they interpret things differently. And I always say, look, just get on the phone, give me a phone call. One thing we also pride ourselves, going back to that communication and collaboration, is we'll pick up our phone, you call us and we'll answer. And if we don't, we'll call you back. And I always say to the guys, if someone emails you or calls you, make sure you get back to them in a timely manner, because it's so important. I've heard in the industry, others annoyed with engineers because you can't get hold of them.
Right.
Or they don't call you back for days and days, and then you're left wondering. So that's why I'm always really hard and fast. Even if you're really,
and that's
really
just
busy,
a tiny detail, but man, it will just make such a massive
absolutely.
difference.
Even if you're really busy, but someone else emails you, just acknowledge it and just say, hey, thanks for the email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
You're right.
Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. You're terrible at emailing. Nah. That's true. Hey, with earthquakes in Christchurch, like you mentioned that before, so what's the deal with Christchurch? The foundations and stuff like that, is that with new builds, where are we at with all of that? Is that turning out good, or are we kind of...
I think it's turning out good. It's there's a lot of research in the area, particularly in the geotech space and the soils. So I guess that's a good point to start on, because there's a differentiation there between geotech and structure. So essentially, geotech is everything under the foundations, all your soils. So a geotech engineer and a structural engineer collaborate really closely on any build. So they would give advice on what type of foundation system. Whether you'll see some of the bigger builds going up, like just over here, you'll see the big basement going up. And everything that's going on around there. So they would be heavily driven by the geotech to advice to the structural engineers design. Metro sports facility, the stadium going up, all the piling and everything. I've heard of things sinking over there. So I don't know too much more about that.
Look, that's...
But it happens, and and it's one of those things. You turn up to site and you start working on it, and you're doing the design that's on paper, but things change, and I think it's about adapting to the situation.
Because it is so, like with the swimming pool, because the swimming pool's sinking, Milton. The one that they are slowly building. I don't know if you're aware of it.
I was aware of it.
I think everyone's aware of it, eh?
Well, my wife told me the other day, so she's heard of it too. So
it's kind of... It's crazy, so that is just, because, the hospital's not far away. There's all sort of established things, but
absolutely.
This is like...
I think there's a lot of weight in it as well. And, I think they're continuously operating a submersible pump to help control the dewatering of the scenario, but sometimes...
So essentially, it's just kind of probably water... which is
and weight and
weight.
So again, I don't know too much else about it, but but in that whole earthquake geotech space, like there's a heck of a lot of research going on at the universities. I know Dr. Brendan Bradley, he's heavily involved in the earthquake side of things within Canterbury and New Zealand, and a lot of the designs and a lot of the codes and criteria are directed from a lot of that research as well. So and a lot of work that we do, we follow recommendations, New Zealand standards, codes. So we're bound by all of that. But that space is forever evolving. And
presumably a large project like that would have been ticking all the boxes.
Oh, absolutely.
But for whatever reason.
Correct. And you look at the stadium again, and that goes through a design process, and there's a vigorous peer review process, and you'll have experts within the industry in certain areas, and they're all collaborating together based on their
And now they've committed so much, they can't pull back. They have to work out a way to remediate the problem. And presumably, there's a lot of weight there. And they can't sort of go in there and just chuck more at it, because over-engineering something might not necessarily be
a bad thing sometimes in the right context.
Yes, but other times you might over-engineer it and it might kind of create problems, like
especially
potentially,
cost related.
or
You'll
So-
see there's a lot of media presence at the moment around engineering. You might have even heard of another story in the North Island coming from Taupo about an engineer that fraudulently signed off documents pretending to be what he wasn't. So he was an engineering technologist and he was signing off documentation pretending to be other engineers with their CPN status. So there was over 1,500 buildings throughout New Zealand that he had fraudulently signed off on. So that's being investigated at the moment with the police and Engineering New Zealand for fraud. And then there's obviously a roll-on effect of that with all the councils across New Zealand and all the designs that he had signed off that may not be okay. So, there's a lot of media hype around that at the moment and what's happening with that. And
there's these bad apples in any industry that pop up.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
And it's just a matter of time before they come out. And I welcome the new MBIE regulations and scheme that they're proposing, because hopefully that's going to, regulate our industry better and flush out the bad people, so to speak.
What's a engineering technologist, Steve?
So it's almost like an architectural technologist as well. So the degree level that you go to for Canterbury, so that's a bachelor, an engineering, civil engineering diploma and a bachelor of engineering. So that's your degree level. So otherwise, civil engineering, I think they do it at ARA or other institutes.
Oh yes, I've seen that.
That's like over there, so that's like a technologist as well. So it's not the same level, but you can use that, and then you get work experience, and you could go to university and do like another year, or you can do papers, or you can do it by work experience, where as long as at a certain point you can prove your area of competency, solving complex engineering problems. So as long as you had X amount of years of experience and can prove that, you could still be a chartered professional engineer, even if you went through the engineering technologist process, but for whatever reason that particular guy didn't. I know a lot of engineering technologists, and ARA offer a really good pathway with that as well. So obviously I studied at Canterbury, and most of the engineers I know did the bachelor's degree at Canterbury. At Auckland University offer it as well, and they're also very good.
Flight. Yeah, that's crazy, the impact that one person can have, like negative impact. But, now another question about Christchurch, the old density plan and stuff like that, although I think that was kind of like a nationwide thing. They started tweaking it and allowing 3-storey properties in certain areas.
And I also recently read a couple of days ago actually about areas in Christchurch allowing up to 10 stories.
Right.
So I imagine that's going to have a huge
I saw that too.
knock-on effect, and some not so happy residents not wanting that to go ahead. I mean, imagine a property, say in Fendalton, and then all of a sudden you've got this zone next to you in a 10-storey.
I think it was within this 300 metres of large shopping malls or something like
Correct.
that.
Correct. You're right.
Oh, right. 10 metres is pretty big. What's the
10
central
stories.
city?
10 stories, bro.
10 stories. Yeah.
10 metres is like 3 stories.
Yeah, sorry.
It is big for our little...
Yeah,
it is.
So what's
I get the whole densification and trying to...
absolutely.
It's just probably just a...
Because you see the urban spread going out and out and out. So like
You look at Rolleston, that's just like another city in itself now.
And that's all going to connect up and so forth.
So I get what they're proposing, and there's always going to be positive and negatives. But,
So, I was thinking about it more in the case of the renovations, because personally, trying to get some free advice out of you now.
Renovation knockout.
Well, it goes from podcast to free advice.
That's actually probably a lot of our bread and butter work, is that,
renovations.
Renovations, like, your mums and your dads wanting to renovate their house, or we want to knock out that wall. Bearing, we need a beam in there, We do a lot of that work, and a lot of kitchen places in town we work with, and they'll come to us, we're doing a kitchen renovation, and as part of that they want to knock that wall out. So we do a heck of a lot of that. Yeah.
Well, may I? We're wanting to build up. We were thinking of building 2 rooms on top of that house with a bathroom, just because, more bedrooms. Don't do it.
No, I'm kidding. We've done a few of those, and they're great. I love being involved with those projects and figuring out a solution for the homeowner. Absolutely. So it's all about just understanding the existing structure, and
Yeah.
I guess a lot of the old builds, some of them don't have property files at the council. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, you've got to do basically a full site measure. So we ourselves and all of the architect would go to site and really try to ascertain the existing load path and the existing support structure.
Is that right? What age would that be?
Well, it's all completely dependent on the property. Like I've been involved with a early 1900s one, but it had drawings. And then, you know, on the other side of the equation, I've been involved with a 1950s property and it didn't have anything. So it's really, you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
What year is your house, Dave?
1920s,
Oh,
yeah.
Is it like a villa or a bungalow?
Bungalow,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they're a nice place.
Yeah, so... And it's had, you know, millions of alterations over the years. You still see the concrete pads, which were the fireplaces, I guess. A couple of those.
I suppose, Steve, this is like at parties and things. People rock up to you, try and get you into a corner.
But I mean, on that note, like we've got to design houses for that. Like it's funny you say that because you know you design a house and it's got a deck, and like why do we have this big beam in here? I thought, well, we've got to allow for live loadings on that deck. Like it might be okay for the 2 years you're there, but if you on sell it, we're still liable. So we've still got to design that to the codes, and we're going to design it appropriately for the life of the structure.
It sounds like you just get this all the time.
Oh, you do?
Like, why don't you just put that in there for?
Yeah.
I want a big window here or something.
Yeah, absolutely. You get that all the time. You're always going to get pushbacks, and that's good though, because then you do start, again, it's collaborating with the homeowner and saying, oh, okay, that's fine, I understand where you're coming from, let's change this, and if you do that, we can do this.
But when you start using terms like load paths, it's like, oh, shit, there has to be a load path.
Yeah, and there's got to be a certain way, and we try to do this as much as we can, is, I guess, for want of a better word, it's engineering for dummies, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, like those books, and trying to explain it and convey it in a way that people understand, because not everyone will. So and you get that a lot with some of the homeowners, they just, it's gibberish to them, so trying to explain what's going on in layman's terms.
I mean, I guess some people are not even interested because they just want their dream to be realised.
And they want it
We're
done
not interested
yesterday.
in all that stuff. Just make it work.
Yeah, just make it work, and they want it done yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's can be another thing too, is time frames and working within those. Yeah. So going back to your place, I did one down in Dunedin. I've done one up on the hill where they both went up. The one in Dunedin, we ended up just it was easier to just put 4 beams around the perimeter, and transfer the loads via the steel beams, just to isolated point loads. So then we weren't interfering with all, because it was a villa too, and they didn't want to interfere with. They had all of the different ornamental sort of features in the ceilings and everything down below, so they wanted to protect that. So then we systematically chose 4 locations.
Oh, fantastic.
And we put steel columns down there, and then transferred all the load through those beams down the columns into isolated foundations, and then we were able to build up from there.
That's fucking cool.
The other one over Governor's Bay area, that ended up being quite a bit of work, and we made existing single-storey internal walls load-bearing, and then put new floor joists over those, and with a few, carefully selected locations and new beams. Then we made it work, and then floor joists between, and built up from there. So
wow.
Yeah, that's
so
one
anything's
area.
possible.
Absolutely. So that's the gravity aspect. So there's 2 things in a structure. There's the vertical loads and there's the horizontal loads.
Right.
Vertical being all your gravity loads, snow, for example. Horizontal, wind and earthquake. So obviously Canterbury's in a high seismic region, so you've got to consider
15
that.
years
So
ago,
you're putting more weight up there, so that weight in an earthquake's got to go somewhere. So that's your bracing, that's your door frames if you need it, that sort of things, and that's going to make its way down to the foundation. So that's your load path. You've got to have that load path vertically and horizontally. So that's basically our job, and we've got to make sure it stands up for the life of the building. So there's life safety aspect of it.
How much did the specifications change post-earthquake?
A lot. So, I can't get into all the specifics, but it's exactly that. It is being more specific too. And there's multiple ways of doing things. For example, epoxying a bolt into concrete. There's so many different adhesives. There's so many different brands. So we'll use a particular one, like we'll just say Healey, for example, and we'll design it with that, and then we'll say or equivalent, refer engineer, or refer specification, and our specifications, we'll talk about those particular processes on how to do that. So all your different materials, concrete, timber, steel, all of the durability aspects as well for its life. Concrete, you've got concrete codes for durability.
Yep.
Same with all the other materials. You've got maps of New Zealand, so all your distances from your sea spray zone, and then when you're beyond the sea spray zone, so if you're in either or, you've got different treatment.
Yeah.
You've got to adhere to a different cover and concrete that you've got to adhere to. So,
Jeepers creepers. And then within like, okay, you got New Zealand, but then within the city, there's also, is all of that geotech kind of information being kind of compiled in one place?
Correct. Well, there is. So there's a website called NZGD, New Zealand Geotech Database. So obviously geotechs are encouraged to upload that documentation, so we can access that too, which is quite nice. So if you're doing a project, so every new project now pretty much needs a site-specific
because
geotech
Christchurch
report.
must be one of the most geoteched out places.
Absolutely. So a lot of the places outside of Christchurch are now following suit. Like for example, I'm doing a foundation design in Palmerston North in the North Island, and I've got the geotech report, and they up there now are using our terrain categories TC1, TC2, TC3. So this is great. We need a foundation design equivalent to TC2. Perfect, done. Yeah, and so a lot of the other cities and territorial authorities are aware of that. Liquefaction was an uncommon term prior to the earthquakes. Yeah, mate. So everyone's a hell of a lot more aware of it.
There's songs about it.
Yeah, there is. So there's so much that goes into a design and so much collaboration, particularly the more complex it gets. Yeah, and it can be quite rewarding, particularly on like a high-end project. You see it getting built, and then you see it finished, and the client's happy, and you've done a good job. And then when you get feedback on that as well, it's quite humbling. Yeah,
cool. And what are some of the highlights? Like you talked about that big house in Dunedin that you're involved in. What are some of the other little highlights? Do you do kind of holiday homes and batches?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because and those can be in far-flung areas of New Zealand. That must
absolutely. So we got one that's finished now in Castle Hill, and that was a very, very cool project to work on. Very extreme elements, obviously, high earthquake zone, high snow zone. Yeah. So all of that was specifically designed. So there was a lot of work that went into that, and it was quite a high-end architectural build too for the house there, and it was a family's holiday home. They were right into their skiing, so big open gables and big high roofs, obviously like 45-degree roofs to help shed the snow. But that's just like portal frames in both directions because they wanted a lot of glazing and open areas, so you couldn't just use your cookie cutter approach with jib walls everywhere. It was it was specific portal frames, it was specific horizontal diaphragms to transfer the load. And then visiting site and seeing it going up with that surrounding, with that landscape was pretty incredible. And the views and seeing it finish now is pretty cool. And then another one's out Hoka, and it's a builder's own home, and that's been pretty special too because it's got a 9-metre cantilevered roof on it.
What?
So when you sit in your lounge and he opens bifold cascading sliders, they open up probably 4 metres in each direction. And then when you're sitting in your sort of sunken lounge, you've got views out to the mountains, and the ceiling from inside cascades out to the Safite, all one plane. Right. The whole roof is cantilevered out, so it's pretty awesome designing it. But then when it's getting built, I'm like, shit, I hope we got the calculations right on that.
It sounds like a vineyard or
it's just their own private home. They wanted to do something different, and it's pretty cool. So this big cantilevered roof with got a big frame here and a big frame perpendicular to that to try and support this big cantilever.
Oh mate, that must be so rewarding to pull something like that.
But even seeing the structural steel get erected on site, like the size of the beams and the columns, they're big, almost commercial sized structural steel. The flanges are about 25 mil thick. Of steel, so it's pretty beefy with big, massive ground beams and piles.
the steel workers
Yeah.
are one of a kind people, aren't they?
They are, yeah. No, and hats off to a lot of those
Yeah.
steel fabricators. They do some fantastic work, particularly in Christchurch. There's some excellent fabricators.
Yeah.
And they do amazing shop drawings. Like we're working on a couple, and they take our drawings and the architectural drawings, and they collaborate them together, and they make full 3D drawings and full models, and
Right.
it's just awesome. And then we obviously check their drawings to make sure it encapsulates our design. So yeah, they're like John Jones Steel, VIP.
Yeah.
They all do amazing work, and there's more as well. So
Cool.
Yeah.
I've got a story about steel which my wife loves to hassle me about. And I had a job with a concreting company for a short time before we had Pilgrim, actually, and I was pretty bad. I was probably their worst employee. But and they also had a little branch of they had a couple of builders doing building work as well as the concreting. And there was one house they were working on and doing some steel, putting steel in, and I happened to just be doing a bit of demo work for them on the, while they didn't have any concreting work or whatever, or they decided to get me out of the way. Who pulled the tiles off of this bathroom? And anyway, the steel turns out, it gets, the little truck drops it in the bloody garden, and everyone's sort of standing around looking at it, kicking it. That's a big piece of metal. And then the time came to lift it into the house, and there was 5 or 6 of us, and it was just the most ridiculously heavy thing that I've ever tried to lift. And I don't know how much, I don't feel like it was safe. Like, I don't feel like we were doing things properly at this point. But the guy from the steel place, he was a fantastic leader. And the main reason my wife hassled me about it was because she accused me of having a crush on this guy. But he was kind of cool, calm, and collected. He was like an alpha male, and he did his job so well, and he commanded. And we jumped and did what he told us to do.
Yeah.
But getting the steel in was just... I felt like at any moment one of us could have been squashed or killed.
It was pretty heavy. I can see you've perked and Milton up over there on your comments, and I know what he's going to say too.
Yeah. No, but this guy was freaking amazing. And he he had all his tools, and he was just like, boom, and got it all stuck up where it was meant to be, and we kind of got it into... the position.
And even on that note, we've got a couple of projects under construction now. One's up in Redmond Spur, and that one in particular, the contractor on there is just they're an amazing group of people, and some of the workmanship that they do is just incredible. The finer details and the flashings and fitting it all together on the house. I mean, some of that's architectural, but the finish that they're getting is just incredible.
Cool.
And the site is clean, and it's some contractors out there doing some absolutely incredible work.
That's
They
cool.
really
And
are.
they're taking a massive pride in their thing, and they obviously love what they're doing as well.
That's a big thing too. And, and funnily enough, like a lot of the really, really good builders that I've worked with, they do have some of the prior generation there, some of the older boys, and they're fantastic. And God, they could teach some of the younger guys some tricks.
True.
They're just so good. They're so particular about what they do. They just have such pride in their work, in their work environment, in their workplace.
Yeah.
Because I've been to some before, and it's just a shambles, and there's crap all over the site, and it's just disorganised, or they haven't asked the right questions, and they've just ploughed on and they've got it wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd rather them just call me and harass me and ask questions, get it right.
Yeah.
It's always a signifier if there's crap all over the site. In so many industries, it's
even in life, and just
in life,
our bedrooms and lounges,
That's right.
and kitchens. Our one is, of course, very neat, very well kept.
I was going to ask you before, what didn't you like about the high rise? You did that.
Just probably for me, it was more the length and the time it took, and you're just doing one thing for such a prolonged period of time. I guess I didn't think about that when I came down here, the time scale of it, from right at the inception right through to it being built. I mean, I never saw it even go into construction because I'd left prior to that.
Yeah, so it's hard to maintain your motivation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're doing the same
interest.
thing time and time again, you need other things there. So I needed more stimulation with
with
multiple
all these
projects.
elegant residential places, each one's a new
Exactly. I like it. It's kind of it's short and it's sweet, and and when you've got pre-existing clients going, from project to project to project, you're starting to develop a really good relationship with the architect, with the contractors, and then you do a good job, they come back and you get the next one, and so on and so forth. So that getting that repeat clientele, and that touches on probably one of my most favourite things in engineering, and for me it's that consultation side of engineering. It's creating meaningful relationships, like they come to you and you look after them. And
I could see, been through your website a few times, I could see that oozed out of your website, that personability and that collaboration. I could see, like, you've got all your employees have got that quality. I mean, some of them come in here and they're like really, really lovely people.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Smart bunch of chaps.
Yeah, that's nice to hear.
And they drink coffee.
Yeah, they drink lots of coffee.
Which is
even though it's funny, even though we have a coffee machine at work, so maybe that says our coffee's not very good, and your guys' coffee is amazing. I know Mike from the office, he likes to come down and get his coffee once, and then he gets one of the orange. What's the muffin?
Oh, the pumpkin chocolate.
Pumpkin chocolate muffin.
Amazing. There's a shout out right there to your muffins.
Mate, awesome.
Yeah, we stole them, but
those are fantastic. But
that's okay. Yeah,
but so, that's nice to hear. Thanks for that. That's that I actually built that website myself when I started out.
Steve?
I did, just using Squarespace.
Man.
So I've actually been meaning to at some point redo it and get it done properly. So that was just the first thing.
Well,
looks like it does the job at this stage.
It does the job, and when I set up, it was like, well, I need a website. Shit, I'm going to build this.
Amazing.
And, had a mate help with the layout and the content. I did all the content and everything.
Like that's right. Yeah,
and we just gotten so busy that because I basically started in the garage. It's one of those sort of stories. When I set up, COVID hit. I didn't like my previous job, didn't want to go back, handed my notice in, took 3 months off, had a break, and then ended up sort of in the background setting up what I did and website and all the bits and pieces, and so
that's when you jumped and went out on your own.
Yeah, and then so I was on my own for a year and a half even before employing. So that was quite a shift from being on your own, doing everything your way, and then you get someone on. It's like, are they going to do it how I want to do it?
Yeah.
What if they don't? What do I do? So there's so many. You're always continuously questioning yourself. Well, should have I done the right thing?
Yeah.
This is a risk. I mean, it was a risk at the time of going out on my own. But then as soon as you take the next step and start having a team, then it's a different. You're almost it's basically like having another family because you're responsible for them. You're essentially feeding their family too and looking after them. So then you have that onus of responsibility.
But it does become more dynamic because even though because then you can share your like questioning yourself. You're no longer just sort of sitting there questioning yourself. You can kind of chuck the problem out there.
Correct, and that's a great thing. Because even a lot of us guys in small business, even engineering, like we all talk. So we had a group of us, and we get on the phone every now and then, and particularly more so when it was just myself. And you ring them up on the phone, and hey mate, how you doing? And just working on this. What do you think? Have you done this before? So you're always collaborating and throwing ideas around there. So that's a really good thing about the engineering network is. You can reach out to someone if you've got a problem and, you need additional eyes and ears. Yeah. So that's been really... It was one of the helpful things on when I was sort of out on my own.
Having a few heads just working out, like, just everyday things.
Absolutely.
Just having a mate to talk something through and, they'll, have a different perspective and you talk back and forth, and then you sort of choose another way that none of you would have thought of. Yeah,
exactly.
It's such a great way to do things.
That's touching on what I said earlier about that constructive criticism and different ways of doing things. And,
totally.
But another thing is it's a good bit of office banter, like having a laugh and giving each other
injecting humour. I think
great.
Yeah, it sounds like your business is sort of an extension of like how you want to live your life, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I always wanted to have a better flexibility and freedom and now we've got a really good team, and I'm just so thankful for the team that I've got, and it's great to be able to take a step back here and there and knowing that I trust them and they're just getting on with things and
exactly.
And it's great, so I can be there for my family and and vice versa for them too.
I saw some of the things that you're into, like soccer, big time, or football.
Yeah, I've just got back into that this year.
Have you?
So, and that's
Were you
another
off?
thing. I haven't played football since being at Christchurch, basically.
Oh, okay.
Just more with setting up the business with family of three.
Yeah,
You know, I don't like my wife doing everything, so I like to be there as much as I can to help and be involved with the family. So that sort of had taken over. But now the kids are at an age where they're more involved with what we do. I've been able to get back into sports. So. My eldest daughter and eldest son and we go to Taekwondo 3 times a week now.
Oh,
well, so
you get to beat your kids.
it's great. It's I did Taekwondo back in my early days. I did it for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And it taught me really good discipline.
Wow.
And obviously, if you ever needed to defend yourself, you can win. And I was a black belt and I became an instructor for about 3 years. But then, funnily enough, I quit because I got sick of teaching young kids.
And not listening to
not listening. I'm sick of this. So I threw the towel in, and then a few months later, I broke my leg playing football. When I was sort of early 20s, and then never got back into Taekwondo. But it's awesome now, and I can see my daughter and son, and they're really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And they've got that natural sort of technique and ability with it too. It's cool. So
that is awesome.
Started on white belt with them both, so we're just kind of going to all work up. So
you're allowed to. So you're in the same class, or you get private kind of lessons?
Same class. So I still had my book to prove that I was black belt. Oh, we can put you up a bit. And I'm like, no, I'm happy to stay white belt and just.
Yeah.
So when I get yellow belt, I can go to a tournament and kick some butt.
Yeah, true. What's going to happen there?
It's interesting what comes back to you. It's like that whole muscle memory and the memory of what you did such a long time ago. It's actually, the whole terminology. It's like riding a bike is so true, and it does come back to you pretty quickly. And I had, again, with football, I hadn't played for probably 9-10 years. Not as good as I used to be in my younger days when I played, relatively high level football. But it's great because I was coaching my son's team. And one of the guys was, why don't you come play for the Masters, have a kick around? And I said, okay. And went and had a game one weekend and just, loved it again. And now I played all season. So
it's real important having something like that. And it's, funnily enough, a lot of those things you're focusing on, once again, really small details and kind of just working on something that almost seems, inconsequential, but in actual fact, without it, the whole thing would crumble.
It's so important, I think, for anybody to have an outlet. It's so important to have a passion, just to have, time for you. I mean, you've got to fill your cup. I mean, if your cup's not full, you can't be, in my opinion, the best version of yourself for you, your family, your wife,
Yeah.
I think it's just so important in today's age where, mental health is talked about so much more important now.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing in our industry. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in engineering, we're in a pretty stressful job, pretty stressful environment. We deal with some pretty big, life safety things.
That's right.
Designing buildings.
Yeah.
So, I think it's so important to be really open and honest about men's mental health in particular, and women as well,
Yeah. And like you say, with a lot of firms and possibly just in the past in general, it can get talked about, but not quite sort of manifest itself in reality.
I think there was this old consensus that was a bit, I don't know, not taboo, but it just wasn't talked about. And in a lot of places it's still not.
Yeah.
For people being shy or afraid to speak up or afraid to question, and so I think it's so important in any workplace to talk about.
And it is different with men and women as well. It really is. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he's had 2 mates this year kill themselves, take their lives, and it's intense, and I think about it a lot with I don't know, just general people and the population. Like there's definitely stuff happening, and
I think a good word that I think a lot of people need to practice more is empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy towards other people, like putting people before yourself.
Yeah.
It's such an important practice.
It is.
And I learned, being completely transparent, like I've got a therapist and a counsellor, and for me it's the best thing. Like they make you really understand yourself in a deeper way and everything around you. And I've learned so much about empathy. This sort of past year, I think everyone should have a counsellor to talk to. They're fantastic and for different reasons. They're great. They challenge you. They hold you accountable. And I think accountability is a big thing too. You know, being accountable for things in
Totally.
life.
No, it's true, eh? Putting other people before yourselves, it doesn't happen much. One of the biggest problems I find is the outsourcing of our problems to the government or to other professionals where you have to pay money to sort your problems out. And I suppose, look, counselling and stuff does have its place. It always has its place because there are problems which you need help with. But it can get to a point where some of the other support systems kind of break down and dissolve, like family and community and those other things. And like even just talking about your workplace being an extension of that, it makes sense.
Oh,
it
really
totally
does
makes
make
sense.
You know, absolutely.
Yeah. Here's I'm going to give you the menu and you can...
Very good.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, it is, but it's one that I think is really healthy to have in a lot of
Yeah,
people.
we shouldn't
don't talk about it.
Yeah, we shouldn't
we don't
avoid
talk about
it.
that.
That's
exactly.
right.
We shouldn't avoid it.
No.
I mean, even from what I've learned, like I like being able to help educate people, even just from what I've learned with a lot of that.
Yeah.
Another good thing in the business, what's basically made us instrumental in where we've got to is having a business coach. So,
yeah,
you know, this is a shout out.
It's
to
Marcus, isn't it?
Business Mastery. Marcus Shaw. He's been instrumental in what we do.
Yeah.
You know, he challenges you in a different way. He's almost like standing outside looking in.
Yeah.
And he really pushes you and challenges you, and it's great. And you actually you make time to work, on your business rather than just in it.
I should get Marcus back on, actually. He's been on once before. Yeah.
Oh, he's great. He's a great talker.
Yeah.
He's
and we have
on.
Some of the other guests that we've had. I'm thinking of Tony Grove. Tony Groves with the Halo training. He's like a ex-military. And he learned a lot of those things about leadership specifically in really intense, like, you know, on the battlefield when it really matters and you know what is going to last and what's not. And it's no use having someone who is, you know, I mean, you can get shit leaders on the battlefield, but you can get really good ones. And it's interesting what he considers to be good and what those values are which make a good leader.
Yeah.
And then the other guy we had on the other day was... G, who one of his things is it's called leading with empathy, isn't it?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's just one of his main things, is leading with empathy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
that's a good statement right there. Leading with empathy.
Yeah, and that is to do with business and that a very holistic look at
understanding humans.
I think to
because
lead
we're complicated. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, massively complicated. But I think to lead with empathy, you kind of have to have your own shit sorted out to some degree.
Yeah, yes and no. I guess even if you don't, it's leading by example and acknowledging that, hey, sometimes I don't have my shit together and I'm not going to be perfect and I'm going to make mistakes.
For sure.
You know, I think owning that is really powerful, as opposed to, I guess, just pushing it under the carpet.
Oh, you have to own
it.
that.
You know, you've got to take ownership and be accountable for what's going on. I think that in itself is a form of leadership.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Thank you, Steve.
No
Cheers,
worries.
Steve.
I appreciate being on.
Thanks, mate.
Awesome talking to you guys.
Sweet.
All right, let's make
Cool.
breakfast.
See ya.
Bye.